Hi, this is Cindy
And Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and we have a few people in the room so far. Hopefully nothing breaks tonight. We have a good internet connection, it looks like, and I'm hoping people will give a little thumbs up if we have sound this time, because it looks like we do. But we have someone new in the room. Garrett like horses. That's awesome. I love horses, but we don't have any. And Bella's chatting in the background. She's chewing on an elephant. Your mom's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And Linda Taylor, hello, hello. And Curiate Built on the Rock Homestead, hello, hello. So I think we're holding steady. I think we're good.
Yeah, it's the highest we've seen in a long time. They've been drilling down the road for off and on for the last couple of weeks. I'm wondering if there was some patches and disturbance, and maybe they finished something. I don't know.
Maybe because
there's a new housing development that they've been doing a lot of work. So I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely were having problems for a while, but this actually 4,500 kilobytes per second, kind of bounce around that area. So that sounds good to me.
It's roughly where it should be. It's also about twice what we've seen recently.
We've been in the hundreds.
Well, but usually it's
bouncing up to like 2,000.
Some.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it this high in probably in most of a year or 6 months. So something changed.
Yeah, something got fixed. Yay. Everything's been breaking. So what we'll do is we'll go through. I did keep the pictures from last week because we couldn't really use them because the internet was it was a combination of internet being down and you're setting up things for computer and using up bandwidth.
I had 3 or 4 days of I had to change laptops and all my files were transferring to the interwebs and eventually made it back. It took a while back to my new computer. So that was definitely weighing on the system, but it was not good. It shouldn't have taken 4 days to do that transfer anyways.
No, something was wrong. But last week we got to tell the stories of Gus and the Silkies, but I'll just show a few of the pictures to give you caught up. Gus has 2 Silkies now, if you guys missed it. Because there was somebody who moved into the coop and somebody is chatting behind me. Sorry about that. We had this guy move in, this ugly guy. And that's Bella talking. And of course, it was very hard to get him out, but we eventually took care of it. And the only problem is I noticed that our younger Silky, we have the rooster. Our younger Silky is not a female. It's getting a little knot on the forehead. And Silkies take so long to mature that it, and I haven't been out there very often recently, that we realize we have 2 roosters. So we don't have to replace our rooster. But we will be replacing our hens probably in a couple weeks, which means I have to set up a brooder for Silky chicks, which will take a little engineering, but not too much. So we'll see where that goes. Hey, 13 Moons. Yeah, I have a feeling I'm gonna be talking over a 5-month-old who keeps throwing her stuffy over her shoulder and then telling me
it's not 5 months yet.
Almost.
Not yet.
Almost. She'll be 5 months in a week or 9 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take her out of this because maybe she won't. She's in the swing back here. Maybe she will be a little bit more calm when I'm being held. So, excuse me for a moment. There we go. Say hi, Bella. Say hi to. We don't want to lose the elephant. We like chewing on this little guy who's supposed to hold the binky, but the binky came off and we avoid chewing on the binky. We chew on the elephant instead. So there you go. Like that. Ooh, there we go. You can see her. Anyway. Okay, just checking in on the, I should probably move the window where I could see the chat. There we go. So we've had some quick Bella updates. She's got a couple new toys. She can't reach the ground yet, so we kind of rigged something up here so she can still play, but she's...
Didn't you notice there's 4 settings? It's on the highest setting.
No, it's not actually. It's on the lowest setting. The button comes down through the bottom of that. But it's supposed to bounce too. So, but she can't quite reach the ground to make it bounce, which is kind of funny. But we also have this, which is hanging on a doorway now. So she can bounce a little bit. So she's having fun with that. She's been trying out these new things. She did a walk in the woods with, actually 2 walks in the woods with us today because Puddin lost her collar in the woods. It's a chain collar. She just gets excited about, having it on, and like she'll go nuts when you just pick the thing up because she just wants to go out and knows what it means, and you don't even have to put a leash on it. She just knows what it means. We're going on a walk. So she's too sleepy to hear that. But Bella did not get any naps today. So instead of trying new foods today, she crashed in her high chair. But so that was today's stuff.
Yeah, Garrett said it's been since 2018 since been able to come to a live show, so that's nice.
Yeah. I thought I kind of recognized, but I couldn't remember where I recognized it from. I'm bad at that. Your name, that is. Yeah, nice to see you again too then. So, but I did want to show you something from last week. I did have a picture of, but we didn't get to. Bella's been trying new foods. Her first food was yogurt, actually. We're having her play with things and trying out a couple little things, kind of doing the baby-led weaning a little bit. Yogurt she can't do herself, so just trying different foods. Just tastes, nothing big. But yeah, so we've been busy. You had 2 weeks ago now was the chefs, All-Star Chefs thing that we talked about last week. Is that 2 weeks ago? I do have pictures of that if we want to get to it at some point. But you had an issue with business this week.
I've been having problems with my main pasta machine.
Yeah.
Has been wearing out or not cooperating and shutting down a lot over the last 3 weeks or so. And maybe almost a month. So it's been difficult to get through production and difficult to figure out the problems. It's only like one group probably in most of it. And I know of one group in the whole country that sells and fixes my equipment. They happen to be outside of Chicago, so they're not that far. But it is a distance. Yeah, I don't know if there's many others that have both parts and knowledge to work on them. And I kept bugging them about things, and they kept saying, well, do this or do that or leave it with us. And I said, none of those are going to work. You're really going to, if I get it out and it's in a lower level, if I get it out to you, you're really going to have to look at it when I get out there, if we can find a time and try and fix it.
Because you only have one machine this size. And how big is this machine?
It's about 50 pounds an hour.
Oh, how heavy is the machine? Because this is what you had to do.
On the base, it's around 400 pounds. So it's not huge, but it's pretty heavy.
Heavy, awkward, and definitely one person can't get that out of the basement.
No, to get it out of a lower level and go up steps and stuff. You can kind of move it around with two people or 3 people, but
difficult.
But yeah, to move it up steps is very difficult.
So this is how you got it out of the basement.
Yep.
Kind of in the middle of the night.
It was late because I had other things going on before I could get it. Well, I had to finish some stuff and then,
Yeah, so you got it out of the basement into, well, your truck and then into the
I had to put it, well, so that's a little mini crane.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah, that attaches to a trailer hitch.
Okay.
Or a 2-inch receiver. And it's made to boom into a truck. It's a little too tall to get it into our pilot because, of course, it has a flip open hatch door and the door comes up.
Oh, right.
And so I was able to maneuver it from the truck into the pilot because it's an old truck and I really did not want to drive it to Chicago.
Yeah.
It would have been a tough drive. I know the AC doesn't work. I think the heat stopped working on it, among other things. It would have been a really rough drive.
And it's open bed and
it was weather and whatever else. So
yeah.
So I did get it into a better vehicle, but that's if you're looking to lift things, that's a pretty interesting. It's like the truck cranes that go on the side of trucks sometimes, but it actually just hooks into the receiver and has some feet on it to stabilize it, and it can lift between 500 and 1,000 pounds, depending on what position on the boom you have it.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna.
So, what are you doing?
I'm trying to see if I could get Bella in the picture.
So yeah, so it's a pretty effective way to lift moderately heavy things, and I put it on a ratchet come along to get an extra number of feet so that I could get from a lower level, but it's really meant to load pickup trucks and things. So
yeah,
it worked pretty well.
And then notice that there's a couple pictures that I think were from Chicago.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain what they are? This
yeah.
next one is
that's Cora Inc. So I spent most of my day there. Basically drove in the dark and left as it was getting dark.
That's the place that fixed the machine.
Yeah, they handle specialty coffee, specialty gelato, and pasta machines. So they work with Italian import equipment, and they service it, and they do specialty coffee roasting and supplies, and syrups, and really high-end unique items. So I spent the day with them.
That's a cool picture.
That's a chalkboard. That was I don't know if they've sprayed it and fixed it on there temporarily or not, but it's
someone drew it on there.
And that's not uncommon to have. A lot of coffee shops do the chalkboard art, so they have
that's cool.
And they are definitely a high-end specialty supplier for big cities.
Yeah.
And so so I spent time in their competition roaster was hanging out, and they're doing batches of gelato on a $50,000 gelato machine. That was really cool, but I can't figure out how in the world I could swing having a $50,000 gelato machine operating in our market area. I don't think I could do enough business to pay for that thing.
No.
It's pretty nice though. The gelato was there's gelato and then there's real gelato, and this was real gelato.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then what is this picture of?
Oh, those are old coffee paraphernalia
that they collected.
Yeah, it's just in their little lobby.
Display.
So it's grinders and pieces of espresso machines and just stuff. Obsolete stuff that probably couldn't make a decent cup of coffee right now.
Yep. So it ended up being an interesting trip, although you spent the entire day out there, kind of a waste of a day on business end, but
very expensive long day. But we did get it fixed. We pretty much rebuilt, overhauled the whole machine. Should be good for the long term.
Yeah.
Just wear and tear issues, bearings, and changed some shafts and mixers on it, and I think we're okay for a while, which is good because we haven't hit we're moving into our busy season, so it is better to get it done now than in the middle of all that would have been difficult.
Yeah. So. And then that wasn't the only thing that broke this week, is it? I mean, you had hello from Canada, small Canadian beak. Yep. Hello from Michigan.
Yeah, the machine is fixed. I had totally destroyed bushings or bearings, and so we rebuilt 2 sets of them and checked out everything else.
Wooden siding. And
we changed some of our mixer attachments, which have been upgraded and new styles. So, we did all of that, and I think we're good for the
season.
Midterm at least, if not the long term.
Yeah.
And we could go into, I guess later on, they ask the chef if you want to know more about what the status of specialty coffee and specialty coffee roasting is going on. There's a lot of innovation going on in coffee over the last few years. And so I was able to talk with one of the top roasters in the area. They're running a super specialty line. In fact, he gave me a little bit of coffee. I had some today for the first time, and I just ran it real simple to a normal drip. I didn't mess with it, no special water or anything. Mm-hmm. And it's really good. It was really good. I was impressed. Even just kind of abusing the making of the coffee, how good it was.
Yeah. Did you want to talk a little bit about All-Star Chefs, which you did Last week, I know, but this week I have pictures to go with
you can
it.
show 'em.
So this is the line of chefs and assistants.
And a few students and a few people that tend to show up most years. Yeah.
So what is All-Star Chefs?
So
I guess start with
we
that.
talked about that already.
Yeah,
but
last week, but not everybody was here.
It's a chef tasting meal. So the 150 guests come. Then they know that they're in for a specialty dinner. They pay a good amount of money to be there, but I don't think they know who all the chef guests are. They definitely don't know what the food is that's going to be served. So it's a surprise until they show up and they get their menus. And then we have 8 local chefs that are invited to
do 8 courses.
Do 8 courses, and over the course of the night.
And they help each other out in the back, finish everything off, and plate it up.
A lot of times there's so many people just stay out of the way. But yes.
But yeah, so we had. Let me find it. Okay. Oh, sorry, skimming around here. The first course was done by the house, right?
Yeah. So
Bravo.
their dinner chef, Alan, did. So that's an amuse. So the amuse is very small. That's an encapsulated oyster. So think about the size of a quarter, with a little thicker, but about the round of a quarter.
Yeah, zooming in that close on the picture is hard.
Yeah, that really wasn't a great
size.
picture to show what it is, but it's so you can use you can encapsulate gels or liquids or other semi-liquid things with a sodium alginate, and it makes sort of like a gelatin sticky, just a very thin surface to hold it all together, and so that's actually called reverse encapsulation. And so that's an oyster to make it easy to eat, and it's on a bed of tomatoes and citrus and herbs and such.
And then you had the shellfish dish.
The seafood was Nantucket Bay scallops, which are some of the sweetest, quickly harvested with actual divers. A lot of times people call them diver scallops. They're not really diving. These are true diver scallops. They're pulled out of Nantucket Bay. They're highly controlled. They're extremely sweet. You can eat them raw or just barely warmed up. So these were gratinade or just slightly warmed and browned. And then there's a bunch of citrus and herb breadcrumbs and a beurre blanc, which is a reduction of acidic liquids, usually wine and herbs and such, and then added a whole bunch of butter and sometimes a touch of cream. So just to kind of, so it's a citrus beurre blanc. And that was the first course with seafood.
And then fish.
Fish was black cod or sable fish, and it's a fairly traditional Japanese preparation. So it's a miso marinated black cod, and then it's seared and has a little bok choy and some rice with some furikake seasoning, which is like that crunchy sushi bits and pieces and seasoning that gets put on some of the sushi rolls, and there's some sesame and soy.
Now, I should say the last dish was done by a chef who used to live in Kalamazoo, but has a
he's in Milwaukee.
He's in Milwaukee, has a restaurant in Milwaukee now.
Yeah, he's a chef at Harbor House in Milwaukee, right on Lake Michigan, downtown.
John Cricky. And then this dish was done by
Daniel
I can't remember his last name, but from Nan La.
Yeah.
Nan La is a Vietnamese place here.
So he's there. They own 5 different concepts, small, casual takeout. So good food, but kind of simple, not too expensive. Yep. So he's at actually at a Mexican taco place right now, but he's the assistant. Yeah.
Do all the chefs coordinate ahead of time to make sure everything goes together for the meal?
The owners of the restaurant who coordinate the meal every year, they've been doing this for a little over 30 years.
They assign
the protein and sometimes a theme. There was no theme. They coordinate the proteins, and then we give our ideas, and then they'll give some feedback or coordination as far as if there's too much of an ingredient being used or a crossover of main ingredients. They'll suggest some changes, and then they look at what's been proposed, and they will arrange the ordering of the plates. Now, typically you start with seafood and fish and such, and you move into heavier red meats, but they will adjust the ordering of the plates, and then they will then they pair wines that can be purchased with the meal also. So they will look at everything, and then they'll select wines usually 3 to 4 wines that would
Go
be
with.
a nice accompaniment. And
Yeah.
so many people will buy a flight of all 3, and some people just get a glass of something, or they can buy. I think they keep some bottles around. So
How
yeah,
much?
it's pretty fancy. I did a lot of these dinners in big cities, but for around here, I think it's $125 or $120.
Plus the wine pairing.
If you choose to have a cocktail or any beverages, whether it's the pairings or something else, you pay additionally. They give good pricing on these selected items for the evening.
Yep.
And then of course you need to tip your server. So if you have a full course of wine, which might be $50 or $60, I'm not sure. I didn't look at the price honestly. I didn't walk out with my menu this year. Hopefully, I don't know if you guys.
I have a picture of it.
Usually I have the menu, and I hold on to all these menus. I just have a drawer full of all these dinners. But I want to say you're probably around $175 with tip, or maybe almost $200 if you had
per person.
If you had a full wine pairing and
that's fancy for Kalamazoo.
Yeah, that's very
fancy for Kalamazoo.
It's big city. It's a big city thing in a small city.
But you get a bunch of foodies together, and there's usually a wait list for this meal.
They cap it at 150 people.
Yeah. So the next dish was a soup dish.
Yeah, so we went from fish to soup. This is a local chef who has a nice kind of casual chef-driven place called Kitchen House, and she did
She's what, Gull Lake area?
They're in the Gull Lake, so so they
Jennifer
did a Benton's ham, which is the famous southern cured ham, with a cannellini white bean soup, puree soup, and then they added to it some pumpkin seeds, some crisped up bits of ham, and some spices, and then there's some harissa oil, which is a North African spice blend.
That crunchiness was so good on that soup. It just, that was really tasty.
It might have been the first time I've had Benton's ham. I know Benton's ham is, I know about it. I'm not sure I've ever had it before. So they got and Benton's ham and Benton's bacon can be hard to get a hold of. Are they in North Carolina or South Carolina? There's some.
No, I want to say Tennessee.
Maybe they're. Yeah, you know what? I think they're Tennessee. You're right. I think
they're talking about Nashville area.
Yeah, had to do with it was the chef who spent time between both, but it was when they were in Nashville.
Yeah,
so you're right. I think it might be Tennessee, but it's country. Some of the best country ham. So if you're looking for a real showpiece, see if you can get your hands on Benton ham or Benton bacon.
Yes, plus the cost of a babysitter that night for us too. But by the way, Noah's Ark, Mama's doing well.
Well, I don't have to pay for the dinner because I help produce it. I actually get my food costs covered. I don't get paid to be there. However, I did have to pay for a babysitter that night. Yeah. And earlier in the week for me to get some of the work done on it. So yes.
So the whole night goes. You guys all put this out for 150 guests first. But then all the assistants put it out for the chefs plus a guest. So they actually put out this whole meal twice.
Yeah, so I do another 25 or 30 as what's truly a chef's table.
Yeah.
Where it's chefs and VIPs, it's a few of their staff, and we get to sit around and actually eat our own food, which is sort of the purpose of the meal.
Yeah.
And we get to enjoy and talk about the food and just have a Sunday evening together as chefs, which is also something that really doesn't happen in our area. So it's a big deal.
So next one's poultry.
Yeah, so we went from the soup to the poultry. So that is a roulade or tied up duck breast. It has some polenta with corn in it, a little demi-glace of some sort, and some Tibetan morels, which are fresh but cultivated morels. And there's some foie gras mousse on the top. Now, these dishes were taken as the demo plates that we put up at the beginning of the meal to explain everything to the servers and staff, so we can kind of get things going. So they're plated cold, not finished. So in this case, that duck was prepared and seared, but had not been warmed. So while it would be served rare to medium rare, that's
a little more rare.
That's more on the raw side because that was sliced off of a not finished piece.
Yeah. Okay. And then after poultry, we had pork.
So pork is a Berkshire Duroc blend pork shank. And there's a little cake on top of there. It's a little fritter. It's a saffron risotto. So we're kind of playing in the Italian pork shank or veal
Hi, white
shank
picket
and
fence.
saffron risotto, and it's got a nice reduction of all those juices from cooking it for hours. And I believe it was a leek aioli, so a leek garlic mayonnaise or leek onion mayonnaise on that.
So that was also very, very tasty. And then white picket fence joined us. And then your dish.
And I had the red meat dish. So
Oh, you didn't say who did the poultry dish.
oh, the poultry was Lisa from
Richland, but I can't
no,
remember.
they're from Augusta.
Augusta,
which is between here and Battle Creek.
Yep.
Heading towards Battle Creek.
Yep. And
they are.
I can't remember the name of her place.
Oh yeah, I should know. It's very notable. People go out of their way to actually eat there. It's probably one of the only really notable places.
Yeah.
Again, small, sort of chef-directed, chef-owned restaurant that's not too pretentious, but they're really trying to make great food. They focus on a lot of Michigan products and also contract with a lot of Michigan meat. So they're providing a farm-to-table experience many times.
Yeah.
God, what is?
I can't think of the name of it.
Would come up. Yeah. We have not eaten there.
No.
I've heard of it, but I've never eaten there.
That or the Kitchen House, which we need to
we need to go. They're kind of they're a decent drive for us.
Okay.
So
yes, of course, Mike's dish has to have pasta, but he's the red meat.
Yeah, so I'm asked to do red meat, but of course they want pasta. So instead of playing with really expensive, last year we had what was it, wild African elk that were grown on a reservation in Texas
for the red meat dish.
Loins.
Not us.
Not
ours.
So this year I went the other end. I did sort of lesser cuts, and a lot of times they're called the Quinto Cuatro or the Quinto Cuatro, depending on where you're at. So that's the fifth quarter, and so it's all the things that aren't in your primary cuts. So I did a tripe, which is a young cow stomach and tongue in a slowly reduced cooked down sauce, typically from Rome, called paggiata, which is tripe and sometimes sweetbreads. I threw the tongue in there for some other good flavors. So it's a tomato and white wine, and it's finished with some ricotta and pecorino. And then just to make sure we had some more red meat, I did a buffalo meatloaf or a buffalo pate. And we wrapped it up in some cabbage for a little visual effect, and also kind of thinking about like casual Sunday night dinner, and maybe you have the Italian family and the homestead Irish or farmhouse family that was doing some meatloaf and cabbage, and so we put those together, and then there's a little bit of chili thread on top.
So that's the hairy stringy like thing on top is the chili thread.
Yes, that's actually I used a bunch of calabrese chili. So we also had truffle oil and truffles and foie gras in the pate.
Yeah, so very tasty, and we're still eating that.
Yeah, I got a little bit of trim laying around.
And there's one last course. This one.
And dessert, we went pretty light for dessert, which was
water cake.
Eric, who's a corporate chef for Millennium, which is the largest sort of casual to finer dining restaurant group. They own about a dozen restaurants in town. They did a Japanese water cake, which kind of stumped, I think, all of us. Had to do some research on that. Water cake is basically an agar
gelatin.
Yeah, it's a gelatin with agar, and it's just water, distilled water. So it forms a clear dome, and you put these toppings over it, usually some form of sweet syrup. Sometimes you actually flavor them or put syrups or kind of make a glass, show out of them. But there's a brown rice syrup that's sort of like a molasses in the cup that you can pour over it. And then they had a number of condiments, and there are things sort of a beach theme or a Zen beach theme. And so the condiments included the yellow almond flour, toasted almond flour sand that has some chocolate rocks, which are just pieces of chocolate that are glazed to look like kind of rocks, pebbles. There's some popped amaranth, so you can pop amaranth like popcorn. You get these really super small little popped amaranth, and there's some toasted soybeans that are kind of chocolatey or coffee that just from the slow toasting they're crunched up, and they put some hibiscus flowers on there which are also edible. And they were telling us in the chef's meeting or dinner they had to throw that palm leaf on there because they quickly realized that the toasted almond flour was getting wet and soaking up liquid from the water cake and causing a mess. And so they had to figure out a way to waterproof it. So they quickly went for the palm leaf to help out that situation.
So White picket fence, they don't understand the water cake. Well, I think a lot of times, didn't many people, they put some of the flavorings into, like, the chunks into the water cake?
No,
Or do they
no,
just
no.
have
You
that?
pour you
I
pour
thought that's what
glaze.
they said.
No, you pour glazes over it.
Over it, yeah.
You could use needles or other things to inject flavors or colors into it, sort of like a snow globe or those, flowers that are trapped in glass, that type of thing. But no, it's a vessel. The cake is actually a vessel for the other flavors.
Okay. So anyway, that was Ulster Chef 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, gluten-free on the dessert. A number of the courses were gluten-free.
Besides the pasta, a lot of them
We
were.
had some butter beans. We mixed the sauce with butter beans, and we provided that to a gluten-free. We don't get many dietary requests on this meal because it's so kind of out there that if you have too many dietary requests, typically it's just not the best option for dining.
Because it's really a chef's tasting meal.
Yeah, so they don't want to put too much
choice.
restrictions or have too many alternatives. It would be too difficult. But we did have a couple gluten-frees. We did have my pate, unfortunately, had an extremely small amount of breadcrumb in it, so it wasn't technically gluten-free, but all but the most sensitive could have probably gotten away with that also. So yeah.
So, well, and we might as well transition just into Ask the Chef, which this course, I took the picture from a week ago. This was a dish we ate at home that had some locally raised mushrooms.
That was while my mom was here.
Yes, it was. Because your mom was here in the last week.
We had that on what, Friday or Sunday? Saturday? Sunday?
It might have been.
No, it was Saturday or Sunday because I bought the mushrooms at the market.
Yes, it was.
Might have been that night. Yeah. Saturday night, probably.
So while you guys are thinking of questions for Mike, if you have any questions, coffee related or related to any of the things, dishes, or anything else you want, why don't you explain? And he has a cat on his lap. Why don't you explain what this dish is?
That is wild Alaskan salmon.
Not local.
No, it was
but good.
Frozen and available at the local Costco at a good price. So it was just a single fillet, so we cut it up. It was probably a coho. So it really, I guess we got 4 portions out of it, so we had 3 and we had 1 left.
Yeah.
But it was not a huge side of salmon. So we just had some seared wild salmon. There's some French lentils, which I found super reduced price at a discount place where nobody knew what to do with them. And there's some asparagus that was on special at Myers. It's probably available in Peru or Chile or somewhere right now. And then there was a blend of some really nice locally cultivated wild mushrooms that we sauteed up.
So this is only like a 5th local, but it was still very good.
Yeah, and then I think I had some cherry tomatoes thrown in there. Yeah. So it's pretty good.
Yeah. And those mushrooms are actually, I have a picture of those too.
Classic asparagus in the kitchen food. Wow.
Huh.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So these are the mushrooms, the picture of the mushrooms.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to remember now because I looked it up last week. What are the 3 types? We had
maitakes. We had
chestnut mushrooms.
Chestnut, which I think are the big ones.
The big ones
and
up
then
back.
Those are the black poplar.
Yes.
Dan had some really nice black poplar, another grower this week. I was asking him, I said, so I bet they grow on black poplar. He goes, they might originally, but not that I know of. He says, I use my usual mushroom medium compost with some oak chips, and they grow just fine, according to him. So,
that's funny.
So I don't know the background on them. I think they might be European.
Yeah.
In background, but they were tasty. They can get a little bit on the stickier side, but they were nice.
Yeah.
So that was a sort of a chef blend, just a little container that I got from a local grower.
Yep. So talking about plastic food toys.
Cornbread being dry. A lot of traditional cornbreads are dry. There are many ways to make cornbread. A lot of the modern cornbread is made very mushroomy. It's made very soft and very low amount of corn. It's more made like a cake or a sweet muffin. In fact, if you look at muffins today, they're made more like cupcakes than traditional muffins that were sweet but low on the sweet level, and more of a bread. So you can vary with the grind of the corn, the amount of fat, the type of fat, be it butter or lard or vegetable oil. Um, pH changes with buttermilk, coarseness and amounts of cornmeal, amount of flour, all of that. So you can go all the way from a very dry, like corn cake, that's very low sugar or no sugar and salty and savory and made with like bacon drippings, all the way to something that's so cake sweet and minimal amount of corn. It just really depends on the recipe and what you're looking to get out of it.
So, do you ever dehydrate mushrooms, and do they rehydrate okay?
We typically get them eaten before we'd have a need or ability to dehydrate them.
You bought dried ones before.
Oh yeah,
though.
I've worked with lots of dried. Ow.
Cat.
Yeah, you need to go somewhere. Clawing me all over. Yeah, mushrooms in general dehydrate really well. Do watch that they're not overly wet, or if they're getting really soggy and old, that you get them dehydrated, because they can get secondary mold or secondary growth of other fungus that can be not so good for them. But they dehydrate great. Typically, what you want to do is rehydrate them in warm water, like urn water was what we do in a restaurant. So it would be around like tea water, and we let it sit. A lot of times we'll pour that water off and use it in a sauce or a stock or making risotto or something. Or
Does it have
soup.
mushroom flavor?
It has a lot of mushroom flavor. You do need to watch how some of them are very dark, depending on the varieties. Like you couldn't make a lot of risotto with it because it would make it really gray.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of flavor, so we let it steep in there for a little while. Pour it off, and it should rehydrate real nice. You kind of look and see if there's any tough, woody spots or hard stems or pine needles or something. Get those out. And then you can further cut it up. The other thing I do is squeeze them out really hard. Many types of mushrooms are as delicate as they are. They actually have a lot of structure to them. So we'd squeeze them really good to try and get the excess water out, so that they could, especially if you're going to need to sear them. They will not perform exactly like fresh mushrooms, but depending on the type, can do very well. Like dried morels are excellent, and they're not as good as fresh, but they're really very good. Some things don't dehydrate as well as others, but
we still have some dried maitake.
Maitake dehydrates very nicely.
Yeah. Which you can also make that into like what were we doing? We were doing extraction of maitake with chaga and with reishi, and was there one more? Oh, turkey tail, and using that just more medicinally, just kind of health kick, try to keep things.
If you're allergic to something to a point where it's going to cause a lot of discomfort or a medical issue, it's always good to alert a server to your allergy. The better the restaurant, the more serious they'll take that. And anytime you mention it, they should. You've also created some legal situations. Most places, you're probably not going to have a lot of mushroom in something unless it says so on the menu. Although in fine dining, where there's more preparations and messing around with stuff, there's porcini powder and mushroom powders that can be added to flavor things. If you do like a beef Wellington, traditionally, classically, there's a duxelle, which is finely chopped and cooked down to like kind of dry mushroom paste, and that's spread around the meat before it's wrapped in pastry. That's to give it flavor and moisture. So you could have mushrooms and mushroom powder ending up in quite a variety of things that you may not realize, stuffings and such. So in fine dining circumstance, you may want to suggest that, and of course, cream of mushroom soup and mushroom broths and stocks can end up in things, or some mushroom trim might end up in a sauce or a stock, but sauces and stocks are mostly made in fine dining, so you're not going to catch that at your, Outback Steakhouse isn't going to be doing any of that.
No.
Of course, a chain of 6 or more typically has a full nutritional and ingredients list available legally, so they're going to it's your independent places that are cooking. You got to watch Meatloaf.
If you really, really don't want mushrooms, like you can say no mushrooms and they'll accidentally put it on there. If you tell them you're allergic to mushrooms, they should really perk up and pay attention
Yeah,
to
I mean,
that.
I find as a chef, if you say, look, I really say I don't like versus I
Mhm.
have a aversion or a strong aversion to versus I'm allergic. And I'm allergic is should mean it doesn't always in a restaurant. It means they should clear the station, should probably have the chef or a manager speak with you about your allergy and what they can provide for you. Because of cross contamination, there may be mushrooms
Yeah.
on the line to go into saute or go into other things that could be spilled across the line. So ideally, that means they're going to actually have to take product from a cooler or somewhere not in the regular workspace
Mhm.
and prepare your meal separately, maybe change cutting boards. So it ends up being a lot of work and a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
So so the difference is I have an aversion to and I'm allergic to is very big, and that really changes what I'm going to offer you and what I'm going to do to try and um, make something available. If it's slow, it's easier. If it's really busy, I'm going to say I can't do it
Mhm.
because I don't have the ability to make sure we have that standard. So it puts a lot of pressure, and it does drive me crazy when you see people say they're allergic to all these things, and then you see them picking at their friends' food and trying this or that. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I just really don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's not the same thing. That's
Yeah.
so yeah. But I find that people that are truly allergic and going to have a medical issue um, typically are very upfront and tell you right away that they have an allergy, and they're just polite about it, and they'll tell the server. Whereas people that have aversions and are kind of playing games will they'll get their food like, oh, is there mushrooms in here? Because I'm allergic to mushrooms,
Yeah.
and I think we can't really make the final call on it, but you can kind of sense where you lay in that situation. Because I feel like anybody who's at risk of death isn't going to forget at the beginning of their meal that they might die from eating something. So.
Noah's Ark has oyster mushrooms on their property.
Oh, nice.
I want some. Can you please? No, we actually could grow it if we started them.
Yeah, I mean, oyster
Um,
mushroom with the warm weather, there should be some up around
there's
here.
some winter oysters too, late fall winter oysters that you can get. So, but there's definitely the summer ones as well. Yeah, just I would love to have
When you
those
got to
oysters.
watch cooking, you got to watch cooking devices for extreme allergies, even some of the gluten stuff. Like, is it cooked in the same pan or in the same oven? Are there saute pans? So for those really extreme allergies, you have to change cutting boards, look at product hasn't been cross-contaminated, and look at the cooking.
Mhm.
Fryers, what type of, has there been other things like were you frying a mushroom spring roll or something or a mushroom croquette or something in fry oil that you wouldn't think about it. That's a big issue in a restaurant, all that crossover.
Yeah. As you guys were talking about mushrooms, I got distracted by somebody and took a picture of her. That's what Bella's doing right now. She crashed. Yay. She's been falling asleep about 8 or 9
I
most
love a
nights.
good mushroom pizza. Now, a lot of
Me
people are
too.
allergic to some mushrooms and not others
That is
because
true.
there's a lot of different chemicals. There are some compounds or chemicals in it that are kind of common in mushrooms, making you potentially allergic to
The,
almost all of them. Yeah,
some of them are the same in some shellfish.
the
So,
chitin, which is
yeah.
in your fingernails and in shellfish shells and things, actually crosses over into some of the mushrooms.
hmm So,
Yep.
um, yeah, yeah, the sweet pea fell asleep. Um, crashed. Good. She hardly took any nap. She fell asleep in that high chair for like a half hour while we're eating, maybe. But that was about it.
I like anchovies. I don't like them on pizza because pizza's already salty,
Yeah,
and
that's
when you
true.
put them on a pizza, especially if you cook the anchovies, and it just becomes so salty. Now, if you use a oil packed instead of a salt packed anchovy that's not quite as salty,
Thanks,
or like
Noah's
the
Ark.
fresh pickle, white ones that aren't as salty, they're quite nice. But the salty ones that used to make Caesar salad and other things that are niçoise salads, it's just too much salt.
Yeah.
I don't mind the flavor. It's just overkill.
Tina had crawfish again.
Oh, really? What'd you do with it?
Yeah. You've been having a lot of
You were asking
crawfish.
for ideas on what
Yeah.
else to do with the extras, so you have to
Yeah.
tell us what
You
you
have to
figured
make a
out.
seafood stock with all the shells, right? Can you do that
You
with
can
the shell?
definitely make a crawfish stock. Yeah, it makes a really nice finishing sauce.
Number 3 grandchild on the way. Awesome. Congratulations, Noah's Ark. So I'm just trying to see if I missed anything else while I was being distracted, but I don't think so. When was it? I had anchovies on something in the last week or two, and I can't even remember what it was on now.
I don't know, salad?
Uh,
Caesar salad?
yeah, it was probably Caesar salad.
Niçoise salad, Caesar salad.
Probably a Caesar salad. Due in August. Oh,
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. So she or he is going to be, what, 10 months younger than Bella. Cool. I don't know if I have any other pictures. I think we went through them all. If anybody else has any questions.
Fed the heads to the birds.
Yes, I saw that picture.
I'm sure they were happy to get the extra protein.
Yep. So, yeah, if there's any other cooking questions. Oh, coffee. You were going to talk about the coffee.
Yeah, we can talk about coffee or gelato or different things, yeah.
Yeah, the places that the Chicago repair store had, and we're talking about there.
Not a repair store, they are a importer of fine Italian equipment.
They're importer and repair.
They happen to have a shop to assist in the repairing of their very expensive specialty equipment, yes. Yes, that's true. Yeah, so coffee right now, a lot of things are going on. You've seen, of course, we went from our traditional drip coffee and sort of very harsh Robusta coffee to Arabica coffees, which are the smaller bushes that are kind of your fine coffee. So that's happened over the last 20 years. So they don't all taste like a piece of wood. And then we saw better containment from going from like glass silexes, which give out a lot of perfume, to the steel containers that have the closed down lids, the silexes, the pump containers that hold a lot of those perfumes in, allow you to coffee to last a lot longer. Went to grinding, people grinding their own beans, lots of shops grinding their own beans. Of course, now what you're seeing is, instead of batches, better quality batches of coffee being held, you're finding many places are moving to single, like it will grind and make your coffee on a machine by the cup. I am seeing a number of coffee shops doing that. It wastes less beans, but also gives you the freshest possible cup. You have to wait a little bit of time. That led to a lot of pour overs, of going to a measured by grams amount of coffee into some form of a filter, and then pouring a measured amount of water, hopefully at the right temperature, over the top of the coffee, letting it steep on a timer, and then releasing the coffee and doing a pour over brew. So you're seeing that in a lot of coffee shops, and you're starting to see, which is a little more work, but it really saves a little more on the coffee and does guarantee you a better cup.
If anybody watches Peter McKinnon, he does a lot of the pour over coffees. He loves his coffee.
If you take the time to weigh everything out, you need a gram scale to do that best. And of course, you need to not break your silexes, which are mostly glass.
Yes.
Which
break really easily.
No, they're Pyrex. I mean, they're gonna, if they hit a hard surface, they're gonna they're gonna break. But
I don't know how many.
You can bang. It's lab style Pyrex.
Yes.
Most of them you can bang them into each other a little bit and probably won't break.
No. Sounds complicated.
It is. And then, so what you're seeing now is a lot of automated machines, which have more or less mastered this activity.
Do you like a French press?
I do. And a French press is sort of the old version of, the pour over. It's very similar, where you take a measured amount of beans, you pour hot water in, you give it a period of time, and then you have a little, tamper that presses down the beans so that you can pour the coffee off. So it's probably not exactly the same, but I consider them basically similar technology. The other thing that happens is the more different types of coffee require different amounts of coffee and different amounts of grind. So something like a French press or a pour over uses a fairly coarse coffee. A French press can be quite coarse, whereas you can grind your drip coffee, sort of a medium to finer grind. Espresso is fine grind, and then your Turkish and Lebanese, Middle Eastern style, where you pour either steam hot water in, or you pour hot water in and you give it a good mix, and then you let it sit, and the grinds actually go to the bottom. That's super, super finely ground coffee.
Mm.
Forms like a mud on the bottom. So grind of coffee versus your brew technique is very important.
Mm-hmm. And Carrie, I'm with you. I am a tea drinker, not a coffee drinker. We could have made sun tea today.
Yeah, no, it's funny. They're
It was 60
suggesting
degrees and sunny
they're
today.
suggesting you not make sun tea for the potential of bacterial growth in the sun because it doesn't heat up enough. On the other hand, you can actually put tea in the refrigerator and just let it cold brew.
Mm.
How fancy! It's cold brew now, but you can let it just do its thing.
Yeah.
In the
More
refrigerator,
slowly,
and it'll come out. They've looked at sun, and the process of using sun to make the tea doesn't seem to change the. People say it makes a better tea, but it does not seem to change the quality of the tea.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've made lots of sun tea, and I'm not too worried about it.
No.
Especially if you're not adding the sugar anything to it or honey first. Then you're moving towards kombucha without a proper SCOBY.
Oh boy. Yeah. No. And you guys, Carrie, do you drink any honey teas? That is my favorite tea. You should check them out if you don't. But I'll put in my pitch for them. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I put a picture on Part-Time Permies. That was a memory that came up on Facebook. It was 5 years ago today. We had, it looked like, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches of snow on the ground. And it was pictures of our previous dogs, our St. Bernard and our Great Dane, looking at the chickens and watching the chickens. But compare that to today's 60-degree day outside and sunny. It was gorgeous today.
Yeah, it was kind of our first warmer day, and it's going to get cold again.
Yeah.
We had teens a few days ago.
Well, we've been 20s at night and stuff mainly, but we're in perfect maple syrup tapping weather. Besides, today was actually warmer than what we need. 40s is a high, 20s is low. Perfect maple syrup tapping weather for the rest of this week. So we got to get taps in sometime soon because we're almost out of syrup from 2 years ago.
Yeah, we're pretty much out. We just have the crystals left.
Yeah.
It'll sit up, but yeah. So the big thing I'm seeing in coffee right now is, of course, the pour overs, the cold brews, which have been a few years, and people are taking cold brew and they're putting nitro, tapping them like you do with a Guinness, so that you can get a nitrous foamed cold brew. I'm seeing a lot of places going to make a cup, so they have a machine that makes a cup on demand. I'm seeing gas stations are starting to move that direction. So I think they're doing that mostly looking at how expensive, using better coffee and how expensive it is to make, in coffee product. So you're seeing people investing more in equipment. And we had the whole K-Cup run, which is still very popular and very useful for small portions of coffee. I
think every hospital system is being sold those things now.
Well, you're seeing a lot of places going to these make a cup. I had a make a cup system, actually, in our staff area for a long time in New York. The reason is people are complaining about the K cups there's so many millions and millions of them being made, and they're not recyclable.
Yeah.
And so people are complaining about that. Plus, you look at all the upcharges when you could just have so the system we had was a filter nylon mesh that was changed every week or so. And it just had a bar that scrapes off. It makes the coffee on top of it, holds it, presses it out, scrapes it off, and it reuses it. And then they change this mesh every week or two and clean out the machine. We had to clean out. We had a key to clean out the extra grounds as needed. So you're seeing a lot of people going towards that. I think it's both the cost factor of all the K-Cups and the disposal factor. So you're seeing that happen, and even on a less sophisticated, gas station level, I think that's a heavy trend. You're seeing more automated espresso machines, and there's always a going back and forth because the traditional espresso cappuccino should be is handmade, and you have a barista, which is pretty highly trained, and in Europe, it's not a kid. It's not your Starbucks kid with multiple jewelries.
It's like your sommelier for tea or
it is.
coffee.
Well, what they do is every day they check their coffee and their grind. They prepare their machine. They adjust their machine. They clean it. They play with their extraction time, and they get it just right. And through the day, they may need to tweak it a little bit. It's a big deal, and it's not easy.
White Big Fence is happy with their Folgers in tub.
Yeah, so making a good making a good espresso drink and teaching somebody, it has everything to do with the grind and the tamping, and very, very finicky. So a lot of the companies have moved to an automated system, which can be dialed in, more controlled. It needs cleaning, it needs adjusting, but you can get a 16-year-old kid to do that a lot better than you can somebody with years of experience. There just aren't that many people around. So you're seeing that fight between the automated and the manual. And you know what? An automated one, when it's a good machine that's properly maintained and used, it does make a pretty good one. Now, in an optimal day, somebody really knows what they're doing might, I think, still many times will make a better cup. The other thing that I'm seeing changing, of course, coffee has to do with the beans, and the quality and how old the beans are. The roasting is extremely important. How fresh. So good beans that are properly roasted, if they're not properly stored and used fairly quickly, don't make a very good cup of coffee. Improper water, very hard water, or even water that's shouldn't be hard. So good, clean water, the right brewing time, and and the right machine, the clean machine, the right size of grind. All those things make a big difference. So you can have really great beans, but if you don't handle all the other aspects of it, you could actually have a very mediocre bean that tastes very good if it's really fresh and through a clean machine and with decent water and it's the right grind and all that. So there's a lot of variables that people don't pay attention to. So buying $15 or $20 a pound coffee may not be your answer to your best cup of coffee.
Well, hello, Rebel Canners. They're talking about growing their own medicinal herb gardens, and we have a couple herbs that we could use in teas and things that we've grown. We've had some bee balm that grows naturally. Actually, a lot of them just grow naturally in the area. Basically, Monarda fistulosa and the rose hips, and you can use some of the raspberry leaves in tea and such. In our garden, we have lavender, and we've had lemon balm. And I think those are the main things. We haven't specifically grown for tea, though. The only thing we could do would be herbal teas around here. We couldn't do anything
we usually
else.
have some burdock.
Yeah.
We have sassafras.
We have sassafras and stuff. That's not really, yeah. You could do some. Well, we do have some brews downstairs.
we have an herbal store not far from here that carries a lot of dried medicinal herbs.
Familiar with buckwheat honey?
Yes, I have had buckwheat honey.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's quite dark and kind of nutty, and yeah, it's nice. It's definitely highly desired by those in the know, but I think it has a unique flavor. One thing that we could do here, we don't have bees, but we have black locust, and we could actually do black locust honey. Somebody's telling me about that. You just have to set out a new frame right as they're going into bloom, and then as soon as they've kind of completed bloom, you take that frame off, and so you can get black locust honey, which we happen to have an abundance of black locust in our yard.
Which is actually not natural to this area. It's natural to the Appalachian Mountains. So I think they started using them in this area to help with the soil and nitrogen fixing and such. But yeah, they kind of take over a little bit. Like a lot of nitrogen fixers actually.
Chamomile, yeah, a lot of people buy chamomile plants. We have a local micro herb and plant starts. He's got his chamomile out already.
Echinacea will grow pretty well here too.
Yeah.
But Noah's Ark bought goat cheese from Aldi one time, and it was so strong.
You're always going to get a pretty sour. A fresh goat cheese is usually quite sour because the way it coagulates as lactobacillus, which causes a souring.
Yeah.
But the funkiness is they're probably batching a lot of milk and holding it for a number of days before they're processing it, pasteurizing and processing, which can cause it to become stronger. So yeah, there's, but the sour flavor in a fresh goat cheese, a chev, is sort of part of the style and the process as you age them.
I love goat cheese.
As you age them, like a manchego isn't sour at all, is it? And other strong, well-aged goat cheeses.
Yeah. Any other questions? It is 10 o'clock, so we should wrap up, but I'm just going to throw out last questions. It's like a last call. There is a bit of a delay on our...
Oh, so the one last thing on coffee that's
the
big trend is watching much lighter roasts. So we went to really heavy roasts and dark roasts, and of course Starbucks burned roast, and the Italian espresso roast, and we're seeing so there's a couple different ways of naming your coffee. So you can have the Italian roast, which are like Vienna roast, which is sort of a medium body, and then you can have your dark roast and your espresso roast. You can have your French roast, which is a relatively dark roast, and they have their styles. And then you can have what we sometimes call a city roast, which is a new style, which would be kind of similar to a Vienna roast. But so you have to sometimes cross your styles and realize they come from different. They can call different things based on their origins. It can be similar, but you're finding a lot of people are focusing on very, very light roasting. So they're looking at their process and maximizing. It's all about exact heat control and time, and there's fancy machines do it, and there's other rudimentary ways. So you take these great green beans and you focus on how long you roast and what you do, and then you focus on your extraction time. And on the lighter roasts, you're finding, I was working with this coffee guy was showing me some of the projects he's working on. They have a little startup side project called Solo, which is determining micro batches, ultra premium batches, and you determine what you want or what blend you want and how you want it roasted. And they have small machines, and so they're roasting directly to meet your style for your restaurant. And so they call it Solo because it's yours. And they'll help you find that. So he's really focusing on pulling out butterscotch and toffee flavors, some of the sweetness and nutty, different, really nuanced, subtle flavors in the coffee that would get lost as you give that heavier roast. It becomes all chocolate and
we are bouncing around. Just a FYI, our internet is starting to be funky on us, so I don't know if we may have hit our max for the month or what.
No, we haven't. We're fine.
It's seriously cut back.
Yeah. Anyways,
so we'll see.
Yeah, so that's what's going on with if you see a lot of lighter roast, kind of playing with the subtle and the flavors. So I think that was notable. The temperature that you drink it and letting things sit and rest for a while, you can bring out some of the sweetness as the temperature comes down. Sort of some sugar caney type flavors. And so I was trying some of the things we were talking about that. And another thing that I'd learned is if you actually make an espresso and you let that crema, which is noted as a really good espresso, is the cream, you let it sit and you stir it back in. That can be very bitter, and if you let it subside, you can taste through a sweeter espresso drink. So that was something new to me.
I think we lost it.
So be it.
We'll see. Refresh this page.
Let's see.
Okay.
We're back a little bit.
Back a little bit. I refreshed my page.
Yeah, so we went from 4,500 to 200.
600 and under. Yes, this is kind of nutty. But I think we should be wrapping up tonight. So if you guys can still hear us, then it's kind of back, kind of not. It's really slow. But yeah. Okay, it's bouncing back a little bit now.
That's all the cable company, so.
Oh my goodness, that's just, geez. I was going to say something else too, but I forgot what it was. So we should probably just wrap up for the night. Bella is sound asleep, yay! So we just have to get her shifted to bed, and we'll definitely be back next week. Kind of trying to figure out how to make plans so we can start editing videos again. So we may
We're gonna
adjust
have
some
to get the
schedules.
garden in also.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to need more time down the road here. So we are going to have to start adjusting our schedules, and we'll have to figure out what to do with the shows. We've been bouncing ideas of maybe an every other week live show, so I can have Sunday nights editing videos, or once a month live show or something. But if you guys want to let us know what your thoughts are, I'd love to be able to get some of our other videos going again though, but try to balance it out with live shows. So you guys can let us know what you think on that. You can let us know here in the chat, or you can let us know on our Facebook page. That would be great. But we will be back next week, assuming our internet continues, which is cutting out again. So we'll have a good night and see you next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.